Good day. This is Dimitri Lascaris coming to you for Reason to Resist from Ottawa, the capital of Canada, on March 3rd, 2026. And we're very pleased to be joined again by our good friend, comrade in resistance journalism and geopolitical analyst extraordinaire, Laith Marouf, who comes to us today yet again from war-torn Beirut. Thank you so much for joining us and for being safe with your family.
Good to be with you, Dimitri. Thank you for having me.
So, Laith, we have a lot of ground to cover, so much happening in your part of the world, which has implications for everybody's part of the world. And I think I'd like to begin just by going back to a conversation which you and I started in late 2023, right after this sadistic genocidal rampage began. And you and I often pontificated. We've spoken, on this program alone, dozens of times since then. We've been in South Lebanon together, Beirut together. We attended the funeral of Hassan Nasrallah together. A lot of water under the bridge. And I go back to the beginning today, it's my first opportunity to speak with you since Hezbollah re-entered the fray and they murdered the supreme leader of Iran. And the conversation went something like this. Where is this all heading, Laith? And you would ask me the same question, and eventually we tried to reason it out, and we would get to our conclusion. Again, this is late in 2023, before there were any exchanges of missiles between the genocidal entity and Iran. And our conclusion, as I recall it, Laith, was that this was going to end in an existential war between the Islamic Republic on the one side and its allies, and the United States and the genocidal entity on the other. And I wish so much that we had been wrong, but it appears tragically that we were right. And so here we are. With that as an introduction, I wanted our audience to know the kind of thinking that you and I have exchanged over the 2.5 years of horror. I'd like to now hone in on what is happening in your part of the world. This will be the first time I'm speaking to somebody in Lebanon since the second war of aggression on Iran began. And more than 15 months ago, of course, in November 2024, Lebanon entered into a ceasefire with the genocidal Israeli entity. Since then, Hezbollah, as far as I can tell, Laith, has refrained from attacking Israel, but Israel's genocide forces committed thousands of ceasefire violations, including very many aerial attacks, not just in the south of Lebanon, but elsewhere in Lebanon, that killed many civilians. And throughout that time, I was amazed that Hezbollah managed to restrain itself and its forces. But all of that came to an end, that restraint, with the murder of Iran's supreme leader, his wife, his daughter, and his 14-month-old granddaughter, about whom, unsurprisingly, we hear virtually nothing. This is his granddaughter, and her name was Zahra Mohammadi Golba Yagani. You'll never see a picture of this beautiful little girl in the mainstream media, as they call it, because they only want to focus upon the 86-year-old man whom they characterized as the embodiment of evil since he first came to power in Iran. Hezbollah reports now, Laith, that it has launched numerous drone strikes on the genocidal entity. So here's one report published today on a resistance channel. It reported that since the supreme leader was assassinated, it's attacked the Ramat David base in northern Israel, the Meron base, the Nafa base in the Golan Heights. And then today, there was a report of attacks by resistance fighters in South Lebanon on 2 Merkava tanks that apparently were seeking to enter the sovereign territory of Lebanon. Now, this is all happening after this character, the Prime Minister of Lebanon, a person by the name of Nawaf Salam, purported to have banned Hezbollah's military activities and to have ordered the Lebanese army to disarm Hezbollah. Evidently, Salam believes that a majority of the Lebanese population supports those two moves that he has taken against Hezbollah. So first of all, Laith, please talk to us about Nawaf Salam's ban and his heretofore unsuccessful attempts to disarm Hezbollah. Where do you think that's all going?
Well, this is a moment, I think, of truth for Nawaf Shalom, as I like to call him, and many people here also like to call him. It is, of course, his decision to criminalize the armed wing of Hezbollah and to criminalize anyone carrying arms for Hezbollah is, just ink on paper, because it requires military force to achieve. Well, what's most important about what Nawaf Shalom did in his orders to the military was the realistic part of his orders, which was for them to withdraw and abandon the south of Lebanon. And that's what they did the minute the Israeli military began attempting incursions this morning. The Lebanese military abandoned 50 somewhat posts and ran away to the north of the Litani. So Nawaf Shalom wants to give the Zionists the south of Lebanon. He wants them to occupy it, and he wants to use the military to suppress any resistance to that invasion. And he's not going to be able to achieve either of those goals, because we saw since the morning the resistance, Hezbollah, fighting back. You posted there about the 2 Merkava tanks that were destroyed. In fact, those were the second and third Merkavas to be destroyed, because earlier in the morning around the Kafar Killa area that me and you visited, and people can go and watch the reports that we filmed from there on Free Palestine TV and on your channel, Reason to Resist, the Zionists pushed a tank into the edges of Kafar Killa, and a miraculous Lebanese resistance person fired a guided missile on that and destroyed it, and it was burning. And then 2 other tanks came to extract the Merkava tanks that was burning and the injured soldiers inside it, and they were attacked also and destroyed, and they were abandoned in flames. The Israelis had to fire all this smoke cover to try to just even let the tank crews escape. And there was a 4th tank since then that was also destroyed. Also on the edges of Shaba'a farms, in the foothills of the Golan Heights, kind of the most remote area of Lebanon that's very isolated, the Israelis attempted to enter there, and they were fought back. And this is a village that is Sunni, by the way. And the bases outside the Shaba'a farms, the Zionist bases, are now in flames. They were targeted in a wave of missiles. So what I'm trying to say here is that while Salam wants the south of Lebanon to be an easy target for occupation by the Zionists, his withdrawal of the army didn't change anything, and in fact is making it easier for Hezbollah to maneuver in the south and protect the land, because there's no more spies from the Lebanese army to get in their way. Right now the Lebanese army is stationed north of the Litani. They're stopping people from crossing in, searching everybody, which is in any moment could be triggered into a confrontation. Up until now, it's just regular citizens going back and forth to their homes. I am sure the Hezbollah and its fighters are able to cross south of the Litani without having to see the cowardly Lebanese army positions. They have their ways to get to the south. But if it gets to a point where Hezbollah needs to actually send large reinforcements to the south, and the Lebanese army is in the way, you will see them stripped to their underwear, these Lebanese soldiers, and marched in front of the whole world without their manhunt if they get in the way of Hezbollah. So this is where the situation is. I think if there is a confrontation, which I doubt there will be a confrontation, the chief of staff of the Lebanese military, General Haikal, is not stupid. But if he is forced to have a confrontation with Hezbollah, I think it will be not only the end of the command of the Lebanese military, but it may be the end of the whole Lebanese government, and Hezbollah may take back control of the Lebanese government, which it never took in the year 2000 when it liberated the country, being the only liberation movement in the history of humanity that didn't take control of a country that it liberated.
So we are witnessing this extraordinary development in Lebanon, where the national army, tasked with defending the sovereignty of the state, has ceded South Lebanon effectively to Israeli forces, subject to whatever resistance the one resistance force it wants to disarm is capable of putting up. I mean, I just boggles the mind how that man is able to face the citizens of the country every day and call himself prime minister. But can you comment, if possible? Maybe you can't, but I would have imagined that a lot of these rank and file fighters in the resistance have experienced a considerable amount of frustration over the past 14, 15 months as Israel ravaged the country and they were restrained from doing anything. What is your sense, to the extent you can make any sense of it, of the morale amongst the rank and file members? I'm talking here about the fighters on the ground.
Look, all of us, not only these fighters, all of us on this planet that have any human consciousness, for the last 2 years have been, and 2.5 years, facing all these depressive moments, the massacres, the genocides, the televised pedophilia and cannibalism, the loss of huge icons like Sinwar and Nasrallah. But I think the last 4 days since the beginning of this war on Iran and the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei in such a, dignified way, this 86-year-old man refusing to hide, knowing that his end is going to come, has basically sparked new hopes. You can imagine how the darkest moments can bring us so much hope sometimes. This is what Ayatollah Khamenei blessed us with. And so I see right now the spark back out in people's eyes that are in the resistance, right? They're watching as Iran has wiped off of existence all American bases from North Iraq all the way to Oman, and the air defense is collapsing and the Zionist entity being clobbered. In the first few days of the war in Iran, I wasn't sure when Hezbollah will enter this battle. I knew that they will enter this battle. I thought that they will be waiting a little bit longer for Iran to soften the ground, to destroy much of the frontline bases of Israel before they enter, for instance. But clearly the resistance had other ideas in its mind and knows more things than we know on the ground. Maybe the damage is much larger than we ever expected in the north of occupied Palestine in terms of the power of the Zionists. And added to it that today, the Israeli media admitted that just minutes before Hezbollah launched this attack, the Israeli cabinet was meeting to launch a war on Lebanon. So Hezbollah had inside information about the plans of the Israelis, and that the Israelis were in the process of launching the war on Lebanon. So they preempted them. The other thing that we can think about is why I would be, if I was a fighter in Hezbollah, why I would be so actually pumped up for this. Maybe it was frustrating waiting, but to see how brazen this action is, it means there is grounds for success. This is not, they didn't wait, as I said, for, let's say, a week or two for the ground to be pounded in the north of Palestine. No, they're going now. And I think maybe right now, I'm starting to analyze it more in my head. Why is it happening right now? How come the Israelis are unable to move 1 inch, even with the total evacuation of the south of Lebanon, total destruction of the majority of the villages in the south? And in my mind now, I can imagine that this is actually a bait. Hezbollah is baiting the Zionists to enter South Lebanon, and they succeeded in baiting them. The Israelis have brought up 100,000 of their soldiers to the border with Lebanon, and they are bogged down there now, while the supply routes and the air defenses behind these 100,000 soldiers are being pounded by Iran, and Hezbollah is firing at them from their face. A few days of this, the 100,000 soldiers that Israel has in the north of Lebanon will be isolated in an island, surrounded on all sides, unable to get supplies, and they will be slaughtered. This is the only, tactical explanations we can see when we lay out the battlefield. And I think the lesson that Hezbollah tried to teach the Zionists in the 66-day war is going to be much easier to teach today. Most probably in 6 days, we will achieve what we saw in terms of destruction of Israeli forces that we saw in 66 days.
Have you been able to gauge the degree to which the resistance has been able to launch aerial attacks? Because obviously, Laith, one of the many ways in which the Lebanese resistance can contribute to the defeat of the satanic entity is to help deplete its already diminished air defense stocks. So have you been able to gauge to what degree they've been able to mount aerial operations, drones, and missile strikes since the second war began?
Yeah, just since the morning, Hezbollah launched 5 different waves of drones and missiles. And we're talking about, it's a combined volley, basically, of 10 missiles and drones or more. And the targets have been the bases around Haifa, the command bases around Haifa, the bases in Meron Mountain, which is the highest mountain in the North Galilee that looks into Lebanon, and the bases in the occupied Golan Heights. So these are the high points and command centers that are controlling the forward positions of the Zionists. And they've been successful. We've been watching the images coming out from the colonists proving that the targets are being hit. And so when we see how this is just the second day or day and a half of activities, and the armed forces of Iran, the aerospace command just an hour or so ago issued a statement saying that the Israeli air defenses have now totally collapsed, and the Iranians wouldn't use such language if they don't know if they're not sure of it. And accordingly, they said they're launching I think wave 14 of their missiles and drones, and that this time it will include Kharmashar 4 missiles, which are the newest missiles to be entering this battle. They have a head, I think, that is 1.5 tons of explosives. So right now we will be seeing much wider destruction and explosive capacity of these missiles landing on the Zionist colony. I think if the Iranians are saying the Israeli air defenses are in total collapse, this means Hezbollah, which is on a shorter distance, where the air defenses have a shorter period to respond to launches, will have even much more higher success rates than during the 66-day war last year.
So I've read numerous reports that in addition to striking South Lebanon, the Bekaa Valley, the maniacs have resumed bombing. Not that they ever really stopped South Beirut, which is not far from where you're situated right now. What can you tell us about those attacks and the death toll they've caused?
In total, just up until a few hours ago, the Lebanese government is saying that over 500 Lebanese have been martyred in the last 48 hours. The vast majority of the targets have been civilian homes. A lot of these martyrs are because of attacks on residential buildings with no warnings. So we saw a big number of martyrs on the first day in those surprise attacks that the Zionists conducted in the Dahiya. and the attacks on residential buildings in Saida yesterday and around Saida today. And one thing that we should note here is that practically all the attacks on the Dahi in the last 48 hours have been coming from frigates and destroyers stationed in the Mediterranean. And this is important to note here because it means that the Israeli military is busy using their air force other places. They are using them in the south of Lebanon, but they're not using it anywhere else. And that at any moment, these naval pieces that are in the Mediterranean that are targeting Lebanon could become a target for Hezbollah's resistance. And I expect it to happen sooner than later. So that's one thing. Yesterday, part of the our daily coverage that we're doing in Free Palestine TV, we went to an attack that happened just outside Al Mayadeen offices in Jnah. It's a neighborhood just beside the Dahi, at the edge of the Dahi. It's a neighborhood that has a lot of the international media offices and a few embassies, including the Iranian embassy. The Zionists deliberately targeted this building at, face to face with Al Mayadeen to have parts of the building collapse over their garages and destroy their satellite link-ups and stuff like this. In that attack, 3 civilians were martyred, 12 were injured, including a 6-month-old baby, toddler. There was another attack earlier in the day. I don't know if you remember, you met her in person or not, Fatima Ftouni, when she's the war correspondent of Al Mayadeen on the border in the south. She's a woman in hijab, a young lady that she's very, very, strong and amazing woman. The Zionists attacked her family and killed 7 members of her family on purpose. So this was all happening as also the Iranians were attacking the IRAB, the Iranian national broadcaster complex.
Sorry, you said Iranians were attacking. I think you meant Israelis and Americans were attacking the IRIB.
Sorry, this is at the same time that the Israelis were attacking the Iranian, national broadcaster complex. So you could see that this was all planned, and there's been attacks on the Qard al-Hassan, the good debt or good loan offices, that co-op or bank that Hezbollah runs that gives people loans with no interest. And so almost all the attacks have been exclusively directed to civilian targets and civilian infrastructure. And this is why the high number of civilians that have been martyred in the last 48 hours.
So the criminal British government has claimed that its Akrotiri military base in the south of Cyprus was attacked with a drone. Do you believe them? And if so, do you think that it was Hezbollah that launched that attack?
Yeah, the Zionists have been saying it's Hezbollah. I'm not sure of it. Of course, there was multiple attacks on the British bases in occupied Cyprus before the ones that happened yesterday and this morning, since Hezbollah entered the war. So if Iran was already targeting the British bases in Cyprus by itself with drones and guided missiles, why would Hezbollah do it now? I mean, Hezbollah has a more important target in its battle right now, which is the immediate, Zionist forces on the border. But it could be that Hezbollah will be crucial in such attacks as this war develops. I think Iran may ask Hezbollah to attack some of the naval fleet that is closer to the coast than Cyprus. That will make more sense, especially now that practically all the airfields in West Asia are destroyed, and the imperialist air forces are having to depend on the airfields in Cyprus, in Greece, and on the aircraft carriers. So attacking the aircraft carrier that is in the Eastern Mediterranean would be a better, more logical target for Hezbollah than attacking the base in Cyprus.
Now, I'm going to ask you separately about Iraq in a few minutes. I want to focus on Syria for 1 second. And the background of my question is, of course, many of the people watching us today will know this already, that the Yemeni resistance Ansar Allah has declared that complicit ships can no longer pass through the Red Sea. They've re-entered the fight. The Islamic resistance in Iraq has declared that it has re-entered the fight and appears to have participated in some quite serious attacks on U.S. military bases in the country. I'm curious whether you've seen any indications that either inside Syria there is resistance, some kind of organized effort to support the axis of resistance at this time, or alternatively, there were reports at the time that Bashar al-Assad fell that a significant portion of the Syrian National Army, which did not betray the leader, the government, the state, fled into Iraq. I don't know to what extent those reports are true. I would be very surprised if some members of the Syrian military didn't enter Iraq. But even there, have you seen some kind of organized effort on the part of Syrians, whether they be former members of the Syrian military or not, to enter this battle on the side of the axis of resistance?
Well, we just saw a statement issued by what we can call Hezbollah Syria, or Ulul Ba's battalions, saying that they are getting ready to begin operations in Syria, from Syria, against the Zionist and American presence in the region. So we haven't seen any of their operations yet, and or announcements of them. So we will wait for that. But I expected, of course, that this will be happening. There's, of course, the Druze militias that are in Suwaida, and they could be at one point, if the Jolani regime and militias are weakened in the south of Syria through activities of the Hezbollah Syria, they could be joining some fights. And yes, there is former Syrian soldiers and officers that are in hiding in Iraq, in hiding in Lebanon, that could join the battle somehow once it is active on a larger scale. There is, of course, American air defenses and presence outside Al-Mazza airport at the side south of Damascus. So that could be one of the targets that are targeted by any resistance movement that comes into action in the next few days. There is the borders with Iraq, where in any situation where a land battle and is active, and or if the Jolani regime tries to do something against Iraq or the Iraqi resistance, that will be probably a location where things become heated. And we can talk more about, of course, what's happening in Iraq, but I think Syria right now is the least active and the weakest of the link, because of what happened over the last year and a half since the collapse of the Syrian government there.
Mm-hmm. Now, last night, let's talk about these U.S. military bases in the Persian Gulf, which have taken such a beating. I understand that this video that I'm about to show you is of a rather destructive assault on the U.S. military base, or one of the U.S. military facilities in Bahrain. And before I show you this video, I just want to comment generally on these videos. As I've said before, we're operating in a very difficult informational environment. There are a lot of fake videos and old videos circulating out there, and sometimes even people who are who believe, even people who post these things do it in good faith. They actually believe wrongly that it's current or that it isn't AI. I myself got caught this morning. I wasn't caught. I shared a video of what appeared to be an attack this morning on Tel Aviv. It was quite an impressive missile attack. And in the comments before I posted it, two separate people had asked Grok whether it was real. I don't use Grok myself, but Grok in both instances said it was. So I shared it. And then it was brought to my attention that the person who originally posted it had come to the conclusion, I don't know why, that in fact it was AI. But he said he wasn't going to take it down for reasons that I didn't really understand. So at that point, I immediately...
And I made the same mistake, by the way, on the same video, and I deleted it also.
Yeah, so I just want to be clear, like, I immediately deleted it, even though I don't know why he came to the conclusion that it was AI. It looked pretty impressive and real to me, and Grok said it was real. But in any case, I think this is real because this has been shared with by the so-called mainstream media. The video I'm about to show you.
Iran's powerful military arm, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, claims it has carried out a massive drone and missile assault on a United States airbase in the Sheikh Issa area of Bahrain. According to the IRGC, 20 drones and 3 missiles were launched in what it described as the 14th wave of Operation True Promise 4.
So that, just so you know, is the Times of India, who posts a lot of video material coming out of the theater of battle. In any case, I don't think I need to replay it. People will have seen that these drones and missiles, that's what the IRGC says it fired, didn't appear to meet any kind of resistance from the air defense forces. I didn't see any interceptor missiles. I mean, we'll just take a quick look at this again, actually, to make sure I didn't miss anything. Maybe there's one missile up there at the top of the screen. But other than maybe one
Iran's powerful military arm,
there were no interceptor missiles. And now, in addition to this, I mean, the Bahrainis have taken, I mean, not Bahrain itself, but the military facilities of the Great Satan have taken quite a pummeling in Bahrain. And almost every one that I've posted, and I posted many videos like this over the last 4 days, you can hear Bahrainis in the background cheering wildly. And sometimes you can also see them cheering wildly. And then within, I think, the past 24 to 48 hours, there have been reports and videos of clashes between Bahrainis, presumably they're Shia, but not necessarily. They constitute a large majority of the population, with the security forces. That was then followed by reports, some of them accompanied by video, that the Saudis have sent security forces into Bahrain. What is your read of where this is all going in that particular part of the war zone, Laith? And please feel free to talk to us about the history of the many attempts by the Bahraini people to free themselves from this tyranny.
Yes, of course, Bahrain is almost all Shia, the population. And it is, blood related to the east of the Arabian Peninsula and to Iraq. The tribes in the east of Arabia and in the south of Iraq are extensions of the same families in Bahrain. They were occupied by the Portuguese and then the British, starting from the 1700s. And then at one point, Iran took over the island, and then the British took it over again. And before the British left, there was a liberation movement, a revolution in Bahrain in the 1960s and 70s. And part of what the British did is they, brought a branch of the Saud family in the early 1900s from Najd, which is the plateau in the center of Arabia, to rule over the Bahraini Shia population with a ruthless iron fist. and that's what they've been doing, the ruling family there, since they were appointed by the British. And we saw, of course, another rebellion at the beginning of the Arab Autumn in 2011, with thousands of people being jailed. Bahrain and Qatar have the highest political prisoner percentage of their population in the world. I think it's around 40 or 50,000 political prisoners in Bahrain, a country of less than 800,000 citizens, right? So you're talking about almost 1 out of 5 people are in jail. So it's a crazy number. Maybe my percentages there, the math was wrong, so people can correct me. But anyways, so this is the reality of Bahrain. In terms of what we just saw here, the video, just hours ago, the Iranian armed forces released multiple videos and images of the destruction of the THAAD American air defense systems and their radars and their command centers in the Arabian Peninsula. These are 2 separate batteries destroyed. These are the eyes that are looking into Iran with these missiles that can go into almost outer space to take out any incoming missiles that are going towards the Zionist colony or any of the vassals in the Arabian Peninsula. That means right now there is no air defenses system that can see far. So the Patriot systems are having to fire at something at the last minute that's coming at them. Okay, this is above and beyond the fact that Iran destroyed the most advanced radar systems. I forgot the call name for it, P1 blah blah blah, that is in Bahrain 2 days ago. People saw that huge, kind of pyramid-shaped, 4-sided pyramid-shaped air defense, a radar system that can cover 5,000 kilometers in a full circle. And so now the air defenses that the US integrated in the Arabian Peninsula are all blind. And the major ones that can fire at something from far away are out of commission. So there's a total degradation of the air defenses, and they're practically gone. So Iran is able to hit any target it wants to in the frontline bases of the US, from Erbil in North Iraq all the way to Oman, with no or almost very little air defense fight back. And so Bahrain is also one of the weakest links in this defense line that the Americans have, because of the population, the reality that the population doesn't want this leadership, has no connection to it, has been oppressed for so long, and they are right now rioting. When we talk about the Saudis sending forces to Bahrain to suppress the population, this has been happening since the revolt in the 2011, 2012, where the Saudis built a force that they called it the Peninsula Shield, and sent it over the bridge from the east of Saudi to Bahrain, and practically occupies the country. Remember, the Bahraini population is very small. The governing, family is small. All the local police are actually Indian police officers. Bahrain doesn't really have an army. It is Saudi occupation in de facto. And the fact that the Bahraini ruling family is just a branch of the Saud family, you can understand why this is happening. What I expect that as the days go by, because the Bahraini ruling family had escaped, by the way. Now, they're not in Bahrain. They're hiding in Riyadh with their cousins. The Kuwaiti ruling family is also hiding in Riyadh with their cousins. The Emirati ruling family is hiding in Egypt. Okay. Now there's no real leadership in these countries. There's no air defenses. Their own armies are just crap, fat cats, generals, okay? And the Americans have abandoned them. There is no American forces on the ground to defend them. At any moment, there could be a successful revolution in Bahrain, and or it could occur to Iran, then I might as well just send a 1 battalion and it will liberate Bahrain, or 1 battalion landing in Dubai and there's no more United Arab Emirates. Okay, so we're at this stage where the US calculations, thinking that they can do regime change in Iran, is flipping 180 degrees, and we are closer to regime change in Bahrain, in the Emirates, in Kuwait, than we are anywhere, even on regime change in Iran.
I understand that approximately 20% of the population of Saudi Arabia is Shia, and they have, whatever the correct percentage may be, they have, even according to Western human rights organizations, been brutally suppressed over the years. Some of the worst human rights violations of this monstrous Saudi autocracy have been directed at the Shia population of Saudi Arabia. Again, this is something that the pedophiliac corporate media in the West doesn't like to talk about. And I say pedophiliac because they're effectively protecting. I'm not accusing journalists of these so-called journalists of being themselves pedophiles. My point is that they are protecting the Epstein class in many ways, and particularly its connections to Israel. But that's another story. Have you seen signs of unrest amongst the Shia population of Saudi Arabia since the killing of the supreme leader?
Well, we have not seen anything come out publicly, but you are correct. Like, this is one of the most oppressed populations anywhere, not only Shia, and not only in the region here. And it is because the Shia population is concentrated around where the oil and gas fields of the Saudi kingdom is, in the coastline of the Gulf. And the other population center for the Shia is close to Yemen and Mecca. So these are two dangerous, very dangerous locations that the Saudis cannot, in any shape or form, allow this dissent in them or things to get out of control. So they are very, very brutal. They are, killing and executing on a daily basis almost people from the Dammam area, the eastern of the Arabian Peninsula. Many of those that are being executed on a daily basis are underage young boys that go out and do a graffiti or something like this. So this is a very oppressed population. But if the moment comes and we see that the Americans abandon Riyadh, you see, up until now, the Iranians are choosing to only target American bases and American air defenses, but they haven't destabilized the military structures of the Saudi regime or attacked its ministries or its leaders. Up until now, this has not been something that Iran wants to do. So it would be a little bit premature for people in the east coast of Saudi to rebel now, because they will be slaughtered, as happened to the Alawis in the coast of Syria when they rebelled a little bit too early, touted by the Russians to do so. So I think Iran is very careful not to let its, the oppressed of the world to go into a slaughterhouse unnecessarily. But if there's some heavy hits on the Saudi regime in the next few days, and there's a destabilization happening, yes, we should be expecting something to happen within those communities.
Now, during the past few days, there have also been quite vigorous, sometimes violent protests at the U.S. embassies and consulates in both Iraq and Pakistan. And I'm going to show you one of the many videos circulating. Again, I believe this to be real, of one of the many protests that have happened at the U.S. embassy in Baghdad, the capital of Iraq. So let me just play this for you. I was sorry, one second. I was myself at that's the I believe that's the entrance to the green zone. I went to Baghdad for the very first time in my life in 2024, and I spoke to Iraqi resistance officials. You can find one of the interviews I did of an Iraqi resistance leader. He was actually a member of parliament, the Iraqi parliament at that time. In any case, I was amazed, Laith, to find that right in the heart of Baghdad, and just because of its position with respect to, I think it's the Tigris or the Euphrates, it loops around this piece of land. So this land has natural protection. It probably is the most coveted site in all of central Baghdad in terms of its the natural features providing it protection. And it's entirely occupied by the United States, which has created effectively, it's not just the US embassy, and undoubtedly there are military personnel there, CIA officials there, you name it. And they call it the green zone. And even though I was myself accompanied by an Iraqi citizen when I tried to enter the green zone, and I had my Canadian passport, the American soldier at the checkpoint wouldn't let me in. Said I needed special authorization. I was accompanied by an Iraqi citizen, and I myself am a Canadian citizen and a journalist, and they wouldn't let me in, even just to roam around and take photographs. So Iraqis themselves are excluded. It's absolutely abhorrent to me that the Americans are allowed to do this. So I guess my question to you is that we all know, Laith, you and I know, they don't talk about it again much in the corporate media in the West. The occupation never really ended of Iraq, and there have been strident demands and increasingly assertive demands on the part of the Iraqi people that the Americans get the hell out. And so with their base in Erbil, as we've covered here, and I'm sure you have too, has come under ferocious attacks in the last 4 days. Do you think this could finally spark a national uprising against the American occupation and ultimately lead to its merciful end?
Yeah, there's two things that we kind of need to think about here in terms of the possibilities of full revolution or revolt in Iraq. One is the presence of the Americans and the presence of vassals like the Kurdish leadership in the north that control around half of the oil revenues of Iraq, plus the fact that the other, all of the revenues of oil and gas sale of Iraq are controlled in the banks in New York, and the Iraqi government has to, give receipts to the Americans to release the money when they want to buy anything. This is how disgusting the occupation is still in Iraq. By the way, Venezuela right now agreed to this, and all this money right now is handled by the Americans. So Chavez must be flipping in his grave, and nobody cares about Maduro. We'll talk about that one day, and your trip to Venezuela to discuss it. But in terms of the other thing in Iraq that we must think about is the geographic and demographic layout of the country. Okay, if there is a full revolt, currently the Iraqi resistance is bombarding the hell out of American bases in Kurdistan and the north of Iraq. Currently also the American embassy in the green zone is up in flames. It was attacked multiple times with missiles and drones last night. It's empty. Yes, you're right. The embassy is on an island in the middle of the river. This island used to be where one of Saddam Hussein's palaces were, and now it's where the new dictator of the country, the Americans, are situated. So I think once the Iraqi resistance makes sure that the American presence in the country is not effective to undermine its efforts, then it can move to some other stage. And that other stages that are more important than having a revolution of a country that doesn't exist with the money that doesn't exist, is to confront the other dangers against any revolutionary figure in the country, which are the Kurdish Contras in the north, the Jordanian regime in the east, and the Jolani regime also in Syria. So we saw over the last 24 hours the Iraqi resistance firing at Jordanian positions and American positions inside Jordan. And that's very significant because this is the only thing left between the Iraqi resistance and Palestine is the presence of the Americans in Jordan. So I think we will see an increase of attacks on American positions in Jordan. And in my opinion, the Iraqi resistance will have a priority to take over Jordan and cause a regime change there before it even has a takeover of government in Iraq, because the end game today is taking down the Zionist colony. No gains in the region are sustainable as long as the Zionist colony is in existence. You can hold a state and a government as much as you wish, as long as the Zionist colony is there. You're just waiting another day to be attacked by it.
Mm-hmm. I saw a report, I wonder if you can comment on this, that some Kurdish fighters who had been apparently trained by the Americans or Israelis and were planning to infiltrate into Iran were caught in Iraq and killed by resistance fighters. Do you have any information about that?
Yeah, we saw two things. That's one thing that is actually happening. We see the movement of Kurdish militias from Turkey and Syria through Iraq to the border with Iran in the north. And in some instances, there has been those situations where they are caught and killed by the resistance in Iraq. But what's more significant than that is we saw last night, for the first time ever, the Iranian Air Force using its jets. Up until now, it's every war, Iran has been only using drones. We've never seen any of its old Phantoms or old F-14s or whatever, or its new Sukhois used in any battle. Well, we just saw them being used. And on what target? The launch pads, the gathering camps for these Kurdish militias on the border between Iraq and Iran in the north. They bombarded the hell out of them. And they also bombarded the American base, Al-Harir base, outside Erbil from those fighter jets. So we can see now how Iran is worried about this, especially that over the last, again, 24, 48 hours, the Americans have been concentrating some of their attacks on the positions of the Iranian military army on the ground, on the borders with Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Iraqi Kurdistan. And that's because they think it would be a location where these Kurdish militias will come from. So it's becoming a zone of possible invasion of Iran. And the Iranian Air Force being used for the first time is a warning to everybody. And it shows you also, if the Iranian Air Force is risking flying on the border of Iran to fire on the American base in Erbil, it means there's no more air defenses that can shoot down these jets. So that's the general outlook in terms of the north and the possibilities of the Kurdish militias getting involved.
Before we leave the subject of the Kurdish militias, I just want to ask you one other question, because of a comment that I read on our last discussion about Kurdish alignment with the United States and Israel. And the comment was that, I'm really sort of broadly paraphrasing here, Laith, that you had nothing good to say about the Kurdish population in the region and that you weren't being fair to them. So my question to you is, as far as you know, is there any group, Kurdish group, that is actively resisting the U.S. occupation of any of these countries or Israel's attempt to subjugate the peoples of the region? Are there any Kurdish groups that are on the side of the resistance, as far as you know?
I wish there was. I have not seen one Kurdish armed group that is carrying weapons on the side of Palestine since the 70s. Okay, so that's not something that I am happy about. Uh, the Kurdish people are part and parcel of the region. They are an extension of the Iranian civilization and in Iranian cultural linguistic groups, but they're intermarried into the Arabic people. Some of the greats of the Islamic era, including Salah ad-Din, are Kurds, and we were willing as Arabs to be ruled by Kurdish dynasty, like the Ayyubid dynasty that Salah ad-Din started, because it was a national liberation, anti-foreign occupation of our land. But now, unfortunately, the Kurdish people are cursed by a leadership that is as vile as the Arabic peoples in the Arabian Peninsula are cursed with the leadership that they have today. You know, saying the Emirati, Qatari, Bahraini, Saudi, Kuwaiti ruling families are pedophilic cannibals is not a denigration of people of the Arabian Peninsula. It's a fact.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And saying the same thing about the current leadership of the Kurdish people, that they are participating in the genocides and the destruction of the region and are collaborators with the Zionists, is not a denigration of the Kurdish people, except if that person actually supports those actions.
Now, before the last thing I want to talk to you about, Laith, is the Iranian missile and drone attacks on the genocidal Israeli entity. But before we talk about that, I can't help but ask you about this character, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, who disgraced himself in this country. No offense intended whatsoever to our brothers and sisters in India, but if I've often talked about how the Prime Minister of Greece and the Prime Minister of Canada, I'm a citizen of both those countries, disgraces us every day, or disgrace us, the two of them, with their behavior. And Narendra Modi, I have no hesitation in saying, brought shame upon the fine people of India by being received in the Knesset like a king and then proceeding to behave like a vassal. That's precisely what he did. And here he is getting the gold medal for depravity from the Speaker of the Israeli Knesset. And what strikes me about this farcical scene, really pathetic scene, is that he did this just before Israel and the United States launched a criminal war of aggression again on Iran. And his country is a core member of the BRICS, and Iran is now a member of the BRICS. So my question to you is, Laith, what do you think all of this means for the BRICS?
Yeah, this is, for a while now, of course, I know sometimes people listen to me and they're like, oh, this guy is always eternal critic or is too skeptical or what have you. And I know, of course, time proves my positions are correct. I would love that actually the BRICS works, that China and Russia would use this economic power base to help peoples in attempting to escape colonialism and imperialism, but they're not. We have, India in this BRICS. We have Brazil in this BRICS. Both countries are pretty shady in terms of their operations with the West. And, the Indian people suffered tremendously under colonialism. The Indian people birthed such gems in human history and, of liberation like Gandhi and Nehru and others. And of course, the latest iteration of colonial machinations and rule over India have brought us this Hindu nationalist movement. And I think since the visit of Modi to India, there was multiple shows that came out on Israeli television, analysis shows and so forth, studying this phenomena of what India is doing with Israel and so on. And in one of those shows, these big Israeli financiers talked about how they're not buying products from India, that they have now bought the whole production lines of India. So now the Zionist investment are so deep within the Indian economy over the last 15 years, since Modi came into power. This shift has happened where the Modi and his clique helped the Zionists purchase those production lines to the point where, Indian billionaires and elite have become second class even in the circle of financial power in India. Can you imagine that? This is a country that is the second most populous country in the world. I mean, Iran with 90 million population has forced the whole imperialist order to stand on one leg, have brought the West to its knees in the Zionist colony. Can you imagine if India was ruled by a dignified, sovereigntist leader? Oh my God, their place would be not even on the same level of the United States. It will be on the same level of China, at the top tier of human development and human sovereignty. But what do we have? We have a president of a country of 1.8 billion people going and on his knees to put his head down in front of the Holocaust Museum in occupied Jerusalem. What a disgrace. And of course, our hearts go out to the Indian people. Hopefully they can rid themselves of such filth at the top of their governments.
Yeah, before we leave this subject, I just want to share this with our audience. Indians living in Israel have had apparently to seek shelter in the subways because the racist Israeli population will not allow them to come into the bunkers, which are apparently much better equipped, safer, and more comfortable. So whether Prime Minister Modi gives a damn about that is another question altogether. So then finally, let's turn to the missile and drone attacks by the Iranian military on the genocidal entity. So, it's well known now, or should be, that the genocide forces of Israel maintain a very strict censorship regime in general, but particularly in times such as these, when they're being pummeled by a formidable opponent. So censorial are they that today, two Turkish CNN journalists were arrested while broadcasting live outside the headquarters of the genocide forces. And this is from the Times of Israel this morning. Police have detained two Turkish CNN journalists in Tel Aviv who had been broadcasting live outside the Israeli military's Syria military headquarters. The pair, a reporter and cameraman working for the outlet's Turkish language news channel, had been filming near the site today after Iran launched another missile barrage at Tel Aviv and other areas of central Israel. During the live broadcast, two men who appear to be soldiers approached the men and seized the reporter's phone. Police say they received a report about two suspects equipped with cameras, according in real time to a foreign media channel. Now, I don't know what that's all about, because based on the images that I saw, I actually saw this video. There didn't appear to be any damage visible in the background. So that can't be the reason why they arrested them. They just didn't want to have any journalists filming anywhere close to the headquarters, I suppose. In any case, despite this really repressive military censorship regime, a number of videos have come out. And I'm just going to show our audience three. This is an attack on Beersheba, which I visited in 2024 when I was driving from Tel Aviv to Eilat, and I understand that it plays a very important role in the technology sector in the genocidal entity. That was an attack yesterday, as you can see. And that, as you can see, has been posted by Al Jazeera. Presumably, it has been verified, but I've seen that from a number of other sources as well. Then there's this attack on the holy city Al-Quds. This was, I believe, on March 2nd.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Yo! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Yo! Oh my God!
Oh my God, indeed. Now, I just want to show the beginning of this again so you can see how many interceptors were sent up and failed to intercept what this appears to be a hypersonic missile.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Yo. Okay, the final video I want to share with you, Beit Shemesh, which I believe is about 25 kilometers west of Al-Quds, was struck hard very early on in this criminal war of aggression.
Oh shit! It's a motherfucking rocket! Oh my!
One more time.
Oh my God! Oh shit! It's a motherfucking rocket! Oh my!
That's what happens in a real war. You know?
Yeah.
In any case, Laith, one other thing I want to say, I just want to ask you generally for your impressions about how that part of the war is unfolding, and, you know, in particular, the performance of Israel's air defense systems. But I just want to say, as a prelude to your response, there has been some very interesting commentary coming out of the Iranian foreign minister recently. He was, you know, there have been reports of oil infrastructure being attacked, a refinery in Saudi Arabia. Also, the U.S. embassy in Riyadh apparently is going up in smoke. And then you have Tucker Carlson coming out and saying that Mossad agents have been arrested by the Saudis, and I think maybe the Qataris as well. They were going to mount attacks inside the kingdoms to basically incentivize these regimes, or either discredit them or incentivize them to become more directly involved in the war on the Islamic Republic. So the foreign minister pointed out that before the war began, in anticipation of decapitation strikes against the military of Iran, basically about 30, as I recall, 30 commanders were given instructions which included a significant degree of discretion, but broad instructions for them to follow in a sort of decentralized response to the attacks by Israel and the United States, so that they're acting more or less independently now, which creates, with a significant degree of discretion, which creates sort of a rather chaotic situation. And you could conceivably have them, for example, targeting embassies or oil infrastructure, which the current leadership would prefer that they not do for whatever reason, but they do it anyways because they've been accorded a significant degree of discretion. In any case, this creates quite a challenge, I think, for the genocidal entity. It's much harder for them to predict when the attacks will be launched, where they're going to come from, what the composition of the projectiles is going to be, because you have basically dozens of military commanders acting independently of each other. In any case, with that as background, Laith, what is your overall assessment of what is happening in the missile and drone war over the genocidal entity's territory?
You know, when we were in Iran just just a week and a half ago. That was just a motorbike backfiring. It sounded more than anything, but we were lucky enough to be invited to go to the Iranian Aerospace Industries Museum, and we filmed a documentary there. So if people want to understand the details of the Iranian missiles that we're seeing right now used in full, please go and watch that. It's a very interesting documentary. But what I can tell you right now is that the Iranian guiding systems that were developed to be used on these missiles are accurate to 5-meter radius. Okay, so that means it's pinpoint accuracy, number one. Number two is that all the hypersonic missiles, the first, generation of them, have maneuverability at the end stage. Therefore, they can change trajectory, and they see the incoming air defense missiles and kind of fake them as they're coming close to them and change suddenly. Okay, and so this is why we see all these 11 plus air defense missiles missing one of these hypersonic missiles, and once it passes them after faking, it goes into the highest speed and just goes into its target, and there's nothing it can stop it. As we saw from that video, the target was the air defense system itself. Okay, so this is the Iranians have been using these first generation hypersonic missiles to destroy Israeli and American and imperial air defense systems over the last 3-4 days, and they've been very successful. Now, there's another stage to these missiles that people have started seeing over the last 24 hours, or 35, 30 whatever hours, which are, people are seeing this something like rain come down. Okay, and some of the analysts that didn't know what they're talking about were like, oh, this is the Iranian missile has been hit by the air defense systems, and it's just, parts of it are collapsing. That's not true. You can see in the documentary that we produced, the new heads on some of these missiles that Iran has have up to 80 different missile heads inside the main head. Okay, and they have them in various configurations. Some of them have these 80 separate heads that break out and go down. Some of them have decoys that break out and make it harder for the air defenses to actually target the main warhead that's going to its target. Some of them have cluster munitions that are raining over whole neighborhoods, destroying whole neighborhoods. And so these are the second stage. This is what we were shown in the museum that is 10 years old. Okay? So what we're going to start seeing starting from tonight, by the way, and ongoing, is the beginnings of us seeing actually things that we haven't seen ever yet in any of the wars before. Faster hypersonic missiles, larger warheads, more advanced intercontinental ballistic missiles, and things are just going to look like unbelievable. If people have been shocked at the images that we're seeing over the last 4 days, wait till you see tonight and the night after and the night after, as Iran starts bringing out some of the weapons that it has never shown before. And given that the Iranian aerospace forces have said that the air defenses in the Zionist colony are totally paralyzed right now, I think we will see huge destruction and death rates over the next 24 hours.
I'm curious to know, Laith, I have not seen, I'm not surprised by this too much, but I have not seen a single video of a strike on an Israeli military base. My read of what they're doing, they do let some videos get published, particularly by authorized Western so-called journalists from Fox or CNN, friendly, media organizations in the West. But what they let out is designed to create the impression that all of the strikes are happening in civilian areas, and they will never allow the publication of any kind of a strike on a military facility unless the image is used to counter a claim that the military facility suffered extensive damage. So, for example, during the 12-day war, I think that they allowed the publication of some photographs of some holes in the ground at one of their air bases in the Negev to show that they hadn't even struck the runway. These missiles had just hit sort of dirt. But other than that, whatever they let out, and I'm just saying this because I think people need to be mindful of this when they look at the videos that are available. We're only getting a tiny glimpse, and what we see is being permitted to be shown because it advances a certain propaganda narrative. In any case, Laith, with that, please tell us that where people can reach you. You were off of YouTube for a while. You're now back on. We're going to publish this piece as a collaboration between our channels. But tell us where we can find your work and how we can support Free Palestine TV.
Yeah, so you can find us on our website, freepalestine.video, where there's all the links to our social media accounts and where people can donate directly. We are 100% dependent on donations from our viewers. We're not backed by any political party or government or what have you, or big billionaire funders. So it would be amazing, of course, people donating and sharing the content. And we are back on YouTube, where people can right now also subscribe there if they don't want to pay the donation. We're on a Substack where people can subscribe there also. And we're coming out with daily reports, recaps of the day, field reports, and interviews. And there's a host of documentaries from Iran, Italy, and Greece that are very, very important for people to watch. The documentary about Soda base, NATO base in Crete, is coming out hopefully in the next 24 hours. We were in Greece, in Chania, near Soda base, and filmed clandestinely around the edges of the base. And spoke with activists from Chania about the history of the base being used by NATO to suppress peoples around North Africa, West Asia, and the Balkans since 1953. I encourage people to watch that and share it, especially that there's a big possibility that as soon as the UK bases in Cyprus are out of commission and the Imperial Alliance starts depending more and more on Chania and Soda base to continue attacking the axis of resistance in Iran, that Soda base will come under direct attack. So watch this documentary. You'll learn a lot about the history of this base and what's going to happen.
Yeah, just for people's edification, Suda is on the southern coast of Crete. It is a huge U.S. naval base, and it was reported that the USS Gerald Ford stopped there on the way towards occupied Palestine because there was a massive problem with its toilet system, which they apparently tried to fix there. In any case, thank you very much, Laith. Please stay safe. Our best to your family, and we look forward to our next discussion.
See you soon, Dimitri.